There we go. Can you guys hear? For some reason, no matter how many times I set the mic that I want to use, every time I do a flippin' live stream, it changes the mic to a different default mic. And I have to go in here and change it. There we go. It's working now. Cool. Everybody having a good week so far? I'm going to be honest, I haven't been super active this week. It was my first week back, and then I had a week off. Last week, I was off doing house stuff all week. I had my office all taken apart all week. And then I kind of had a slower week this week. There hasn't been a ton going on. There's not been a ton of excitement in the market for me, at least. We're kind of in this consolidation range at the all-time highs. So there's still setups. I just haven't been real excited about the current location in the market. So I haven't been super active this week. Nice Friday surprise for the live stream. Yeah, I thought so. Somebody commented on the YouTube video that I posted yesterday, sharing like my trade desk setup, my computer setup. A lot of people asked that. Somebody commented and asked me to do a live stream. So here we are. So everybody thank that guy that commented on the YouTube video asking me to do another live stream. All right, so we'll jump into the analysis and start going through things. There's not a ton to cover, guys, so it should be pretty simple today. And we want lives every day, Jose says. Maybe sometime in the future. I do try to, like, on occasion, like monthly or so, I do like 1 week where I just live stream every day. And I did that, I think 2 weeks last month, sorry. But my regular cadence is just doing like 1 and sometimes 2 surprise live streams a week. But if you want to see the most up-to-date stuff, I post a lot of trade recaps on Instagram, and I post a lot of stuff in my story throughout the trading days. But like I said, the past 2 weeks, I haven't been super active with trading. Just for one, 2 weeks ago, last week, I was completely out of the office because my office flooring was being redone. And then this week, I just haven't been really excited about current price action and location in the market. So I've just been kind of chilling. When would you put emphasis on closing and opening prices for levels of interest? I always watch opens and close. So levels of interest for me, I'm always watching opens, highs, lows, and close. So the New York session regular trading hours, 9:30 a.m. open and 4 p.m. close, and then kind of the highs and lows of that day and the highs and lows of the overnight trading session. So I always watch highs, lows, opens, and close, and then I watch key levels that's form from just support and resistance, supply and demand, that kind of stuff. Just pretty standard, like a lot of standard technical analysis stuff. I do watch a little bit of patterns that form as far as like trend lines, wedges, pennants, and that kind of stuff, but I don't trade specifically off those. Those are just kind of, when I see something form, especially like on the higher time frames, like 4 hour, 1 hour, or daily time frames, then that's the stuff I start to watch and put more emphasis on. And then it's just for me to look for setups around that using order flow and price action. But I'm not just like, oh, here's a trend line, let me wait for it to touch and take a trade. That's not how I trade. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Anybody else have any other questions before we dive into this? Again, for those of you guys on Instagram, I am live on YouTube where I'm sharing my screens. So better platform for live streaming. If you're on Instagram, I recommend the link is in my story and the link is in my bio to my YouTube channel on Instagram. All right, Ishan said, do you focus on POC value area high volume profile? A point of control, value area high and lows. No, not specifically. That's not something I do. Look at like the volume profile that develops on the days. Specifically, just I like to see where there's a high amount of volume built up, and then where price moves aggressively on lower volume. What's called like lower volume nodes. But I don't specifically look at like value area high, value area low, point of control, that type of volume profile. I can be aware of it sometimes, and it may be an area of interest, but it's not like a key part of my trading. All right, good question though. All right, so let's jump into it. So here's the old all-time highs. You can see we kind of like triple topped off this old level, slightly under it before we broke down earlier this year. Large sell-off, large V-shaped recovery, crazy, but honestly, we saw that a million times last year. Not that large of a drop, not that large of a sell-off, but how many times in the last year have we seen these? Actually, like year and a half now, since the beginning of last year. How many times have we seen like every sharp drop has been a V-shaped bounce? That's like pretty much the number one thing I look for on trades now. It's like sharp drops that fail for the V-shaped bounce, because it's just been working so often, so many times over the last year and a half. So that's where we're at as far as context in the market. New all-time highs. We broke out on this really strong streak that I talked about during the live streams a couple of weeks ago. We had this wedge pattern that formed, broke out above it, and really since we dipped that last time to the low of that wedge, and you can just see it like form early on, like when we dipped that last time at the bottom of that wedge, look how much larger the candles are and closing right at the highs as we move to the top. I believe I caught this too on some trades of this breakout of this wedge as well, because I mean, it was just like so strong. Then once we broke out there, there's really no stopping it. However, it did get slower and grindier, just kind of grinding price action the more closer we got to all-time highs. We consolidated here a little bit. We can see, just looking at the daily candles, you can just really get a feel for what happened. We came up here, we tested all-time highs, rallied, based, and then we rallied again. So rallied, based, rally, broke out the all-time highs, came back, tested the prior all-time highs right here around 62.58. This is contract adjusted prices as well, guys. So I always, for my technical analysis stuff, I look at the continuous ES chart and I look at the contract adjusted prices. Broke out, pulled back, held, broke out again. But now we've kind of double topped here at these all-time highs. So this is a little bit interesting. Double topped here at these all-time highs, pulled back. We're still in this range though, still holding above this. And this is actually a key part of my analysis going into today as we drop down to the lower time frames, is just this prior all-time high, 62.58, and some other levels that I'll bring up as we drop down into here. But I mean, how clean is that? I'm sure Vincent Desiano, I know he loves the breakout trades, break and retest setups. I have to imagine he was all over this. But how clean is that? Breakout all-time highs, pulled back into here, got bought, bounced back, broke out all-time highs again. I did not catch that, but it was a great setup. All right, let me pull up the 4 hour now. Zoom out here. So here's that level. We did get slightly under it on this pullback. What was this on Monday? So had a good bit of selling on Monday after, you know, prior week really closed at the highs. Had quite a bit of selling to start the week. But really since that drop Monday, it's been just really just higher lows. A little bit of a break of these higher lows here after we tested those all-time highs. So that may be important to watch here. You'd really want to see that sustain above. If that can't sustain above, then, you know, watch out. We may come back down here to this prior all-time high level again. But really, since that strong drop lacked continuation, we dipped under it right into this area of demand. Oop. What's going on here? So we can see that area of demand that formed on this pullback, really strong rally. ICT fair value gap, people like to say, right there. Pulled back into it, and we've held this area. So nice little demand there that formed on the breakout after this consolidation, this basing period and breakout of all-time highs, pulled back into it, held nicely, bounced. If that wasn't good enough, we pulled back again, held another higher low, bounced again. So that's where we're at. You see my intraday levels. I have some more levels here. The main one being the 62.77 level, which we actually like dropped to almost to the tick this morning in the pre-market. Good morning, Richard. Ishan, I look at low volume nodes that develop on a session basis and even just seeing them like on a lower time frame intraday on my footprint charts. It's also key. So let's see here. So again, here's that prior all-time high level, 62.58. Here's this key level that I have talked about around 62.77. This was kind of an overnight swing low level on the lower time frames that I marked back here. And then we dipped and held under it. And then once we broke above it, it held again here on this pullback. We rallied up to that. And then now in the pre-market, we've dipped and held there almost to the tick. So important, just kind of pivotal area, support, turned resistance, turned support. So that's an important area. So really this whole area is 62.77 to 62.58. As long as dips hold above there, I'm still looking for ways to get long, and I'll probably just target, you know, the swing highs. So my approach on Fridays is generally just to look for quick base hits. Volume tends there's always exceptions. Nothing is always right, but it tends to get slower and volume tends to get trickier the later it gets on a Friday. So typically my approach is to look for a quick base hit, especially just in the first hour, and then regardless, just kind of walk away. 9 times out of 10, I generally regret sticking around for price action into the afternoon on a Friday. There's very little news drivers today as well. Sometimes surprises can happen, you know, especially with Trump in the White House. You know, a tweet can come out, news can come out, anything can happen. But again, I try to avoid doing things where it's like, oh, just this one time I'm going to try to make money. If it's not like something that I consistently repeat all the time, I'm not trying to make money just this one time on something. So generally, like I said, my approach on Fridays is look for quick base hits in the morning and then walk away. That's what I'm going to be doing today. Not looking to stick around for price action all day. So we'll see what develops. And again, just based on the higher time frame, the trend is up. Higher lows have been holding since this sharp pullback on Monday. Really, we've not made a lower low since then. We've just been higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, grinding higher. And this kind of key area to me has formed between 62.58, this old all-time high, and 62.77. I know that's kind of a large zone, but it's just an area of interest where I'm watching. If price pulls back here any further this morning, then I'll be looking for ways to take that long, unless I see something that voids that. If I see some really, really strong selling and really weak buying, pops failing, etc., you know, I'm never firm on these pre-market plans. I hope you guys see that. Like my morning plans is just a starting point to do analysis intraday and see whether that confirms or invalidates that plan. And then I make adjustments on the fly. But that doesn't mean I just take random trades against my plan. That means I had a plan. This is what I was looking to see. And if that is invalidated and price action does something else, then that's almost just as valuable of information, because then I can say, okay, that didn't happen. So what is the next thing that could potentially happen? And then I kind of develop a new plan based on that and execute based on that. But I'm never just like jumping in random trades against the plan. There's a concept in the military called the OODA loop. I forget. It was developed, I think, by like a World War II fighter pilot. And OODA, OODA, was observe, orient, decide, and act. And they found like in like the dog fights with those, you know, older like planes, they found it was a concept where he said like the most successful pilots would have the best ability to observe what's happening, make a decision, and decide on that and act on that. And the fastest you can go through that process of observing what's happening, orienting yourself so you can position yourself, make a new plan, decide on that, and act on that, you're going to be more successful. If you're too rigid in one way, like this is the only thing that's going to happen, this is the only thing that I'm going to look at, in my opinion, you're always going to set up yourself up for failure. So that's kind of a back end mindset that I try to have with intraday scalp trading in general, is that OODA loop concept of just having the ability to be quick and nimble and observe, orient, decide, act. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, Logan, surprise. I posted this morning early on my story on Instagram. So if you guys aren't following on Instagram, that's where you'll get the quickest alerts for anything that I'm doing, because I always post in my story on there and post reels and everything on there. So I highly recommend that. And then also, if you guys turn on that bell icon on YouTube, then you'll get alerted whenever I post things or maybe do a surprise live stream like this. How did you get into trading? Did you work another job? Yeah, I worked in tech for like 13 years. So I was in the military, and then I worked in tech for a long time and got into trading, and kind of did both for a long time, because the futures market trades, like 23 hours a day. So there's lots of opportunities to find ways to trade around having a job. So that's the game plan in a nutshell, guys. Drop down here a little bit to the 1 hour time frame. You can see a little bit more clearly, but really, I mean, it's pretty simple today. Everything that we need to know for the trading plan today was seen clearly on the daily and the 4 hour time frame. But we can drop down here to the 1 hour and see. And this is another reason why this is an interesting level that develops. So this prior all-time highs and this 77 level, you can see, look at all the consolidation that we had down here and wicks down here. So just from a technical analysis perspective, like when I see demand form, I like to see a basing period of consolidation and then a rally out of that. And then I like to see it hold on pullbacks into that. So that's kind of what we had here above these all-time highs. That's a nice structure. And we have several key levels that develops that we can really pinpoint that zone between 62.77 and 62.58. So about a 20-point range there. Support turned resistance level, turned support, and then prior all-time high level. We had this consolidation in here at the breakout above all-time highs. So far, it's held on multiple pullbacks here. We'll see how this develops today. Here, let me try to flip the camera around here on my, show you guys what I'm talking about as well. There, hopefully you guys can see that on Instagram. A little crooked there, but you guys see what I'm talking about. So really, first game plan today. Now, if I see a ton of selling in here, I'm not completely opposed to, if we break under this and buying fails below this, to take it for a quick little short scalp and maybe target a drop back down to this old all-time high level. But I don't love that setup as much unless there's just really, really clear price action and really, really clear order flow confirmations to take that setup. I'd rather just sit out. Christina says, Matt, great video on your hardware setup. Can you confirm if you subscribe both to Rhythmic directly for Bookmap and Denali for Sierra? Do you execute off the DOM on Bookmap or Sierra? Yes, I subscribe both. I use Rhythmic data on Bookmap, and I use Denali data on Sierra chart, and I execute my orders on Sierra chart. On the DOM, and I have like a little order bracket thing that I can put in. I can connect my brokerage accounts to the DOM on Bookmap and order there, but I use the Bookmap DOM primarily just for analysis. That is connected to my Tradeovate account, so I can send orders to my Tradeovate account on there, but that's not my primary way. I primarily just trade on my Sierra chart brokerage account that's connected there. Move that. All right, guys. So that is the game plan. If anybody has any other questions, let me know. Instagram, if you guys want to stay on the stream, I recommend hopping over on YouTube. The link is in my story on Instagram, and the link to my YouTube channel is in my bio on there. I'm going to end the stream here on Instagram, but I'll stick around on YouTube. See you guys. All right. Since sellers are starting to defend all-time high, when do you say they're starting to flip narratives? Unless it's a very quick scalp and just a quick like counter trend capitalize, and I'll often size down on those types of setups, I don't really look to catch tops at all-time highs. I don't really flip narrative until I see market structure really shift and we put in a high and then we shift market structure on the higher time frames, like at least hourly and 4 hourly, to where we're now breaking structure to the downside. We're making lower lows, lower highs, etc. But we're still just in consolidation here at the all-time high. So even if I see like sharp, quick pullbacks, that's just a combination of maybe a silly news headline and a lot of people just taking profits. But we're still like consolidating in this range above the old all-time highs. And this is kind of the range that I was talking about. We can see here on the hourly time frame here. Really between like this. Yeah, pretty clear hourly picture here over the last like week. We've just been kind of consolidating at these all-time highs after we broke out above it. And we had that nice sell-off Monday. And then we kind of just stayed flat down here for a little while. And that's kind of why I haven't been so active this week, just because there's not like a lot of continuation momentum to new all-time highs. There's also not really any downside breaking structure. Like if we broke under these 62, the low of this range, like these old all-time highs around 62.60 to the bottom of this range, if we broke under there, right, and we started breaking down and then we rallied and failed under here, that's when I would start looking for shorts. But I'm not so keen on especially catching top reversal setups at all-time highs. It's just a recipe to take a lot of little losses. Yeah, I like to look for quick hits in the mornings on Fridays and then walk away, just because, you know, volume tends to decline. There's always exceptions, but with how aggressive that push down was overnight, would I consider that supply? To me, that's kind of just a lower volume time. A bad news headline came out, and I mean, look at the volume down here, right? It is high for an overnight 8 p.m. drop right here, but it's not, I don't put as much emphasis on that as if that occurred during the regular trading hours with a lot of volume. In fact, if we base down here and form some demand, rally, pull back into it and hold, I'd rather use those sellers as a target for longs. So yeah, you could say, get rid of this now, it's too much noise. You could say this area is an area of supply, I guess, sellers. We sold here, obviously, but it's not so much of an area that I would look to initiate a short off of if we come and test it. That could work. And it might work, and then we might sell off from there today. But just contextually, I don't love that setup so much. I'd rather use that area of sellers as a target for longs if I spot the low of this balance range holding and this prior all-time high level continuing to hold, this 62.77 level continuing to hold. If I see strong demand continuing to hold that, then I'd rather use that area as a target than a place to initiate a trade. If that makes sense, Logan. That's just me though. And I mean, that's just how I view things and how I trade. There's a million ways. So don't be like not taking trades that you like to trade because of what I'm doing. And again, let me add that as we go into this. I do not recommend anyone trying to like copy what I'm doing, copy my trades or anything like that. This is just for entertainment and education purposes. Just sharing what I'm doing. Maybe you find some value in it to kind of help you learn or help you do things the way that you do them. But there's always delay in information sharing. There's always delay in, the stream. So it would be impossible for you to realize the same risk versus reward as I do. And so over the long time, your results would never be identical to mine. And, on a short-term basis, the outcome is kind of random sometimes. So like I still have losing trades. And so you're not taking every trade with me. So your results are not going to be the same as mine. So I don't recommend anyone trying to just copy my trades here. Yeah, cool. Logan, glad that helped you. So far, this little pre-market pullback has been pretty limited ever since we bounced off that 62.77 level. Before this opens, let me just go ahead and switch my screen over now to Bookmap. That's what I usually share during the trading session. There we go. Yeah, so you can see I started this, opened up Bookmap at like 7 a.m. this morning, and ever since then, that was shortly after, let's see, what time did this start bouncing off that area? Yeah, around 6:45. So just like minutes before I opened up Bookmap this morning, we started bouncing off this area. We rallied up here with relatively strong buying, actually, relatively strong. Got a little weak up here, but these pullbacks haven't gone anywhere so far. So context is we already bounced off that 77 key level. So I'm first looking to see if any little pullbacks hold for a rally higher, and I'd love to target a break above 6,300, a break above 63.10, 11 area, that overnight swing high into those sellers. But if this just rips right off the open and doesn't offer like any little pullbacks to get in on it, then that's going to be tough. But I do like this kind of momentum that's going on here. If we get a little pullback, again, like I said, the context is we already took out those overnight lows. We already bounced off that 62.77 level. Now there's a little bit of momentum, higher lows stepping in. So I'm okay with looking for a nice momentum long setup if we get a little pullback that holds to target 63.10 to 63.20 area. So nice bit of buying right off the rip here from 62.90. Kind of weaker selling, dwindling back here. See right off the opening bell, nice strong buying, kind of dwindling down with smaller selling here. So let's watch this. Matt, whenever you get the chance, I would like if you could explain more about absorption on Bookmap. let you know if I see it. But I mean, it's just really like if I saw some large red bubbles down here and then price didn't really move any lower and then aggressive buying stepped in, then I would say that would be absorption of those sellers from a passive buyer. Yeah, Logan, I I generally try to stay patient in the first 5 minutes. I would say many times when I jump into trades in the first 5 minutes after the bell, I regret it. Just there's too much like random volume orders that come in that can kind of sweep price either way. I try to generally, I don't have like a hard set rule, but I generally try to wait till at least like 9:35, 9:40 to get into a trade. The pink and green numbers are the absorption indicator on Bookmap. I've talked about that before, but TLDR, those are passive buyers and sellers. So like here, that would be a passive buyer on all these large selling. Nothing too significant here yet. Selling is just kind of dwindling down. There was some larger orders, but they didn't really cause any larger reaction. For some reason, my Thinkorswim is acting funny, not showing my stuff. What's going on here? Bit of selling coming in here now. Yeah, that is true. Yesterday's lows around 62.95 to 6,300. Call it that area right there. Regular trading hours low from yesterday morning did kind of reject. Interesting 200 lot negative delta just popped up at 62.88. So that's interesting to watch now. There's not too much news today as far as scheduled news. We'll see if anything comes out, but There's not too much scheduled news that I'm tracking today. There's the WASD report, but that's more focused on commodities, grains, and whatnot. Bid at 85. Yeah, I see these hitting down here, so let's watch that, but nothing too significant to me just yet, but I am watching that area right there around 85 if these fill here. And I like how that just reappeared here. If we pull back in there again, that's something to watch for sure right here. See how this bid got filled right here, and then it just reappeared here again. So it got filled, like looks like 194 lots or so. So let's see if that continues to step in this area here, or if we break through it. There is a lot of selling here, but let's see if this fails here. See that bid? I don't know if that got filled there, or if it kind of got pulled. $143 at 84. This buying is just a little weak down here, but I'm seeing bid kind of like popping up again. So let's just watch this. The problem is, like, yeah, I see that bid, but I'd rather see some aggressive buying step in. And right now, the buying after these little things that we would see as maybe absorption is kind of weak. So I'd want to see some aggressive buying look like it hits, and then weaker selling on a little dip back into that. So we're seeing some more buying stepping in right here now. Let's see if we get another little pullback that looks like weaker selling. I wouldn't say that looks like weaker selling pulling back into there, but it's a tough read right here. It is smaller selling than what we saw over here, but I'm not seeing like the really large aggressive buying hitting and then weaker selling. It's just a little iffy right here at this current moment. So there's some larger selling starting to get absorbed right there. Again, bid popping up again. The problem is we're seeing this larger selling popping up, and it looks like it's getting absorbed. We can see right here 300 lots, right where that bubble popped up. So you can see on the DOM what that looks like right there. And this bid is popping up again. So far, we're just not seeing much aggressive buying stepping in after. So let's see if we see that large absorption like that, and we see aggressive buying stepping in after now, then we'll see if that looks good to jump in it long for me. I mean, I like how the selling is not really getting strong momentum under these lows, and it's dwindling. we've seen some larger absorption. Now we're starting to see some larger buying stepping in, but it's still not quite enough just yet for me. $359 lot negative delta now here. Again, it is, we're building that negative delta, but I'm not seeing like really aggressive buying come in after that to trap those sellers, and we're just kind of grinding and pushing lower. So I'm sitting out here watching. It may be at this point we want to go take out and test that 77 level, that 62.77 area. We're only 3 points away from that. So the momentum long setup that I talked about after the bell is kind of not the move right now. After we saw this quick aggressive buying, and now we've not really seen any buying step in really since that first like minute. It's just been grinding lower without really any aggressive buying stepping in. So again, we're only like 3-4 points away from that 62.77 level of interest. You just gotta let go of like wanting to force any trades and wanting to like catch every little move. Like sometimes a random move will happen. Like if it just like exploded and bounced out of here and then I didn't catch it, you just got to be okay with not catching every move. Like if you don't see the confirmations that you like to see and the stuff that you like to see for a trade, you're not always just going to be able to catch like every move, and you just have to be okay with that and not try to chase it and not try to jump in random trades hoping that like this is the one, I caught this bounce here. Not trading on hopes and wishes, just trading on repeating the things that I like to see for my trade setups. Zoom out here. So now we've taken out that low that here, which is, no, we didn't really take out the low. This is just when I opened up Bookmap. That low is right around that 77 key level. Since that sharp buying right off the first minute, we've just pushed lower. So it's a little bit more buying now, more than we've seen so far. But at this point, this doesn't look like a super fantastic location to me to try to catch a bottom right at the moment. We're only like 3 or 4 points away from that 77 key level. But that could change on a moment's notice if I see something significant occur here. NVIDIA showing relative strength, Marcus says. I'm not looking at NVIDIA. I'm not looking at any individual stock names. I'm only looking at ES. I can look at VX and see what that's doing. I'll look at NQ and see what that's doing. NQ kind of holding higher lows overnight. So it looks like relatively strong compared to ES, which makes sense if NVIDIA is leading. I haven't looked at NVIDIA. VX is making a nice bounce, pretty aggressive bounce on VX so far. We haven't seen that aggressive of a bounce on VX in a little while, since the beginning, like a week ago, beginning of the month. So probably would need to see VX, and just kind of looking at the time frames here. Let me pull up the 4 hour on VX. We'd probably need to see VX come into some resistance and kind of cool off in order to see some pressure pulled off of ES. NQ is having a pretty strong bounce right here at the current moment. That's pulling ES up a little bit, but very muted bounce from ES compared to NQ right now. I'm looking at this area on VX between 17.6 and 18, some just pivotal levels. So if VX rejects this level between 17.6 and 18, then that could take some pressure off for ES to bounce. But NQ is definitely leading with a nice bounce here. I didn't see anything super key at this moment to take this, but I do like this 300 lot negative delta now that's formed on the selling at 62.81. So if I see a little pullback into here, I may be interested now. Let's see here. See where that large selling is there to there. We'll see. If we get a little pullback into there, then I might be interested now. With VX kind of testing that. This is a pretty large bounce now. I don't know if we'll get a pullback that far now. So I might not be in this, unfortunately. We'll see if we can get a little pullback down here that holds above this zone. I didn't see anything super key right here on ES specifically. We did see this absorption. Actually, this might have been the best spot right here around 81. But the telltale on that bounce was NQ. NQ kind of ripped first and led higher. So see if we get another pullback down into here, see what happens. If not, then, you know, it is what it is. But you can see why I marked this. This is where all that negative delta was, and then we blasted out of there. So if I see a pullback anywhere from around like 85 to 81, if I see a quick little pullback that shows good signs of being absorbed, then I'll be interested in taking that to the long side. Think about the NQ tape. It's hard to read, man. It's so fast. You got to really zoom out. Like here, pull it up over here. NQ ripped off this down here at these lows. That was the better long setup today. Maybe I'll get to a point where I pull this up on both screens and I trade both, but all I really trade is one or the other. And 99% of the time just trading ES. But today that long setup formed nicely on NQ, and it didn't form as well as I like to see it on ES. But if I was watching NQ, that was kind of the telltale sign for that setup. We'll see if we get a pullback now down into here above this key zone that I've marked here. And if we get a pullback in there and I see good confirmations, then I'll probably look to take that long. Actually, let me do this. Let me draw this differently. From like here to here. I was a little trigger shy because we were so close to that 77 key level that I've been talking about, and we bounced just above it. I was kind of waiting to like see if we went and hit that 77 level, because we got all the way down here to 79, and then it just shot up because I think NQ kind of dragged it. NQ bounced first and it just kind of dragged ES. And I'm guessing, let me pull it up. Yeah, VX is kind of wicking off that area that I'm talking about now between 17.6 and 18. So if it pulls back into here, then cool, I got it. If it doesn't, then just be sitting out probably. Yeah, it was super fast and a little merciless. If you didn't catch it like right at the initiation of this rally, then there's no pullback really to get in there. Really quick, if you guys appreciate this, it helps me out a ton if you just drop a like and share if you know if anybody else is interested in this kind of order flow analysis. That's all I ask. See any questions? NQ is at 4-hour demand and started showing strength. Yeah. So we'll see. We kind of at this point where this large buying was off the open, we'll see if this acts as resistance a little bit here in the interim. If we get a little pullback off this, then we'll see if that's a good opportunity to take it long. If we get a nice pullback into here. Again, just looking at the orders, ideally between like 85 and 81 is the pullback that I'm looking for. And the problem is up here, like, yeah, I want to get a part of it, but my risk would probably be at least under 81. And so this would be like 8, 9, 10 points of risk to get in up here at this point. And I'd be targeting 6,300 up to 6,310. So even if we go to 6,310, call it, yeah, that's like a 20-point bounce from here. So technically, yeah, that could be maybe like a 2-to-1 risk versus reward. But that's a big move to look for just a 2-to-1, in my opinion. If I'm trying to catch a 2-to-1 scalp, I'd like it to be a really tight risk, really close bounce. So holding for that large of a move just to try to catch a 2-to-1 risk doesn't seem great to me. So that's why I'm not taking it right here. But buying, stepping in again, might not get the pullback. Tough. Unfortunate, because this is the exact setup that I was looking for this morning. Just didn't really get a nice entry signal on it. And then by the time it bounced here, it kind of blasted straight up and didn't come back at all. If we kind of came up here and pulled back one more time, like I said, this was probably the best entry here at 81. And by the time I saw it, it just kind of, I was waiting for it to pull back into here at all. And it just blasted straight up and never came back. So now it's going again. But like I said earlier, like this is the setup that I wanted. The entry that I look for, though, is for this absorption, some aggressive buying step in, and then to see some weaker selling come back into that. And when the aggressive buying came in, it just shot straight up. And so if I would I would have liked to catch it at these lows here. But if I was just looking to catch it off these lows, off this absorption alone, I may have tried that here, taken a loss, may have tried that here, taken a loss, may have tried that here, taken a loss. So I wasn't trying to just catch a low, and we were only 2 points away from that 77 key level, and then we bounced. So that's just one of those. We spiked on that. It's unfortunate. I did want to catch that long, but I'm not going to chase it. And, it is what it is. After we got this aggressive buying stepping in here, I would have liked to see a little bit, just one little pullback into here. And I would have looked to take that long. And unfortunately, this time it just blasted out of there. And that's it. Never came back. Not going to chase it up here. The risk versus reward just isn't there for me. So it is what it is. But yeah, like I said earlier, you can't just want to be a part of every single move. You got to look for the setups at the levels and everything that you like to trade. And so you don't want to take trades where it's oh, just this one time because I think this is going to continue going up. I really got to frame it around the volume patterns, entry signals that I look for at the key areas of interest that I look for. And if it's not that, then I just have to sit out, unfortunately. And this time it blasted up. I didn't get that entry where we had that aggressive buying and then it pulls back with weaker selling. If it did, which I see often, then I would have taken that as the entry. I guess like I said, the only time we started to see it is on this aggressive selling. We started to bounce and we had this one little dip here. That was the setup. I think I was talking and looking at the charts when this happened. And by the time I looked back, it was blasted up here. We had these little pullbacks attempt here, but nothing. If we just would have got some weaker selling that pulled back into this demand that formed off this absorption and strong buying, again, would have taken it. How do you make use of the DOM data in your analysis? Good question. Let's look down here at the lows. So we see, I think I called this out when this happened, this 300 lot negative delta down here at 81. But after this formed, we just never pulled back into it. And if we just look at the DOM, look at this volume profile delta column. That's the highest negative delta of the day. Right there at 81 that pulled up just a few points above that key level. So we had all of this selling down here. And then we had that larger negative delta that popped up right here around 81. And then we didn't continue lower off that. And then we saw aggressive buying above that. So if I would have saw just a little bit of weaker selling come back into that 81 level, and it did right there, I missed it. I wasn't looking. I think I was looking at the charts and talking at that current moment. And then it blasted up here. But I would have been looking for just a little pullback into this area right here. And that's why I said I was looking for, once this bounced up here with this strong buying, I was looking for just a lower volume. So look at smaller red bubbles on a pullback down into here around 81 to 85, which is where that negative delta popped up, where this absorption was, and then where this aggressive buying stepped in. So I would have been looking for buyers to re-step in on a pullback that occurred with smaller selling that held above this 81 to 85 area. That's what I was looking for. Didn't happen. Just took off. And unfortunately, when that happens and it just takes off, it's yeah, you could try to just jump in it and make money, but if you look at it from the perspective of repeatability and risk versus reward management, it's not it's not good to do that over time. 14 points up, took out 50% of my position. Nice trade. Hopefully you caught it down there at those lows that we're looking at. It's still possible that we could get a pullback down there, guys. So if we get a pullback down there and it reacts and it looks good, then there we go. NQ took out the regular trading hours highs. ES is still behind. ES is still not taking out the regular trading hour highs below that 6,300. If we go and take out the highs and take out 6,300, it's not going to look as good to me if we return back down here. I'd want to see NQ hold its demand that it's formed, and I would want to see ES come back and test this area down here where this absorption and buying was before we go take out 6,300. Yeah, the negative 304 down here. Somebody asked, Jose asked, is that the negative delta? That's it. Yeah, so this is, there was 304 more aggressive sellers than there was aggressive buyers. And so if you flip that, the frame of that, okay, well, what occurred here? Because you can't have there's no seller if there's no buyer. So that means there was more passive buyers absorbing at this price than there wasn't enough aggressive sellers to get below that area where there was larger passive buyers. And then we bounced from there. Does that make sense, Jose? And we could see it just looking at the heat map on this bid here around 62.80. And again, I think, institutions and stuff that have algorithms and stuff to fill their orders, it can be a little tricky to spot, but we can see clearly there was a passive buyer here because look at all this aggressive selling coming in. See these large red bubbles, and it dipped a little bit, There was clearly something being worked here by a passive buyer, probably, getting filled with some kind of entry technique that's used, by some kind of software to probably fill passive orders. But clearly we can see that there was all this aggressive selling down here, just 2 points above that 77 key level, and it got filled and it held. And then there wasn't enough aggressive sellers to break under that area. And then once there was no longer enough aggressive sellers, there was nobody left to sell, and there was only buyers left in the market, and it bounced aggressively. But what I would like to see for this would have been these because the passive buying is great. That's the first thing I need to see. But I also need to see that there's aggressive buyers willing to buy down here now. So I saw and confirmed, okay, now there's a passive buyer here, selling's getting weaker. Now there is aggressive buyers, which is what I need for price to go higher. Let me see one little pullback to get it long. And then, I'm speculating that there will continue to be more aggressive buyers after my entry that will drive price higher. But this time we had the passive buyers, and then when the aggressive buyer stepped in, it just went straight up and didn't give any little pullback where I could have get an entry and framed my risk around. So that just happens sometimes. Like I said, it's not about being a part of every move. It's being about a part of the moves that occur based on the setups that I like to look for, where I can frame my risk and have good risk versus reward ratio. I'm not just buying it because it's blasting out of here, even though that's just not the setup and the way that I like to trade. So if we got a little pullback into here where I could frame my risk and the risk versus reward ratio is very high, now I know aggressive buyers are factored in here. So from a probability standpoint, it looks good. And from a risk versus reward opportunity perspective, it looks good. I like to see both. I like to see confirmations that tell me there's a good probability that this is going to occur. And from a risk versus reward perspective, it makes sense. So obviously, when these aggressive buyers stepped in from a probability standpoint, okay, it looks good. There's a high probability this is going to keep going higher because now we've confirmed there are aggressive buyers coming in. But the problem is now the risk versus reward isn't there. And if we would have pulled back just a little bit, then it would have been like both. Okay, probability is there and risk versus reward is there. Now let me take the trade. Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that. If you caught it down there, great trade. To be honest, I think I was talking and looking at the charts. And if I was really focused, I probably would have taken this right here after seeing this absorption right above that 77 key level. And then this aggressive buying right here and this little pullback with weaker selling. If I was really focused, I probably would have taken this trade right here and put my risk just a couple points below there. But I wasn't. And by the time I really saw it, this aggressive buying was already coming up here. So I'm not going to chase it. I was waiting for one more little pullback down here, didn't get it. So we tested 62.98, just like a tick under the regular trading hours high. Again, I would like to see a pullback to get in this. Now, probably just anywhere under 89 to 81. If we get a nice pullback under 89 that holds above 81, then I would look to probably try to be a part of that and target a breakout of 6,300 into 6,310. But if we go and break above 6,300 now without pulling back, then I'm probably just going to not take it. Yeah, Logan, it's not that. Your Bookmap just crashed because your computer probably couldn't handle it or something. I think I have a dedicated GPU, and I think there's a setting somewhere to use the GPU performance. Yeah, GPU acceleration. So I use that to help with processing and stability for Bookmap. I recommend having a dedicated graphics processor that you can do that. If you're trying to run everything just off a CPU, then it's going to be difficult for your computer. So I turn on this GPU turn on that GPU acceleration to use GPU processing for Bookmap. Yeah, so you can see just looking at here, just zoomed out here, looking at like the 15-minute spacing on Bookmap, you can see how we came in here and look at the relatively large selling right at the low, and then we bounced. And they're just like, that's great. There just really wasn't an opportunity other than that little blip here at 81 to get in after it bounced. It just ripped. And then from a risk versus reward perspective, like I said, you don't want to chase. So unfortunately, we dropped down there, and then once we confirmed, buyers started stepping in, it just ripped this time. But just looking at the chat, it sounds like a couple people were able to catch that right there, which is great. This thing just keeps bouncing, man. It's going to go take out 6,300. I mean, if we do get above 6,300, and we did kind of consolidate here, so I mean, I guess we could look for this. So see this consolidation here. We could maybe say, okay, let's look. We're kind of consolidated. Sellers are just not having it at all. So now we could look for that kind of momentum play that I was talking about on the open before price rejected. So we could kind of see if we do get a break and retest momentum play above 6,300 to go target, 63.10 to 63.20. If I see good confirmations up here now on a break and retest of 6,300 that holds after like kind of this consolidation here, then maybe that's a nice momentum scalp setup. Not as great as catching it right at the lows, but the problem, so the problem with me chasing this up here is because I'm really framing my risk around that 81, and there's a chance that 6,300 could reject, because that was the high here. And so it wouldn't make sense from a probabilities or risk versus reward perspective to get long up here, risking like 10 plus points when 6,300 could possibly reject. But if we can break above 6,300 now and pullbacks hold, and we could take this maybe for a little momentum setup and go target 63.10, that overnight swing high, 63.10, 63.11, and then, up until those sellers around 63.20. But just have to see how this develops. So let's see how this develops here. Still kind of consolidating right at the 6,300. Haven't really seen any strength from sellers to reject this. Kind of weak selling here off this, and then just more strong buying. So we'll see if we get a break of the 6,300 and a retest that holds with more trap selling. There is what looks like a bit of trap selling here at 62.98. So if we hold above the 6,300 and then a little pullback holds above 62.97, 62.98, which is like here where the strong buying is, then I'll maybe look for that for a scalp to the long side. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. So if we pull back into here with some trap more trap selling, now we're seeing the strong buying here through the 6300s, then I may look to scalp that into that 6310, 6320 area. But I wouldn't want to see really like large aggressive selling that rejects back under here. If we see a smaller selling pullback and I see, you know, some trap sellers at the lows pop in, more passive buyers stepping in, then that's what I'm looking for. And it bounced right at the top of that box I just drew. If at 6,300, I was looking for it to drop a little bit more. It's a lot of aggressive buying right here at these highs, 200 lots, 200 lots, which could become trapped if aggressive sellers reload. But just given the overall context of where we've bounced and held now, I'm looking for all of that aggressive buying to continue to drive prices higher, and I'd rather look for a little bit of a pullback to get a part of the move. Dang, guys, no pullbacks allowed, I guess. No pullbacks allowed, just grinding and squeezing. Yeah, I really wish I caught that scalp at the lows, because that was the Friday setup that I was looking for, the quick hit. That would have been a nice, fast, 15-minute, 20-minute, 10, 20 points and done. That would have been great. The drop below 93 into buyers at 91 to 88 looks interesting. Daily VWAP is right there. It holds, could traps. Yeah, for sure. I would not be opposed to that setup at all, Tobias. And that's, like I said, I don't know if you heard a minute ago, but I said now, as we have not really strongly rejected that 6,300, if we pulled back anywhere between basically this 89 and 81. Just anywhere in these buyers, I'd be looking for a long setup on that. But it's just continued to squeeze. I was even willing to buy up here. If now seeing the strength at 6,300, I can frame my risk around that. If we get a little pullback into here, and I just couldn't even get a pullback into there. We got a pullback right there at 99.75, but I was looking for just a little pullback into these buyers here and just couldn't even get that. It's just blasting up again now. So it's one of those days where it may reward you to chase price and to just buy, but over the long run, you will not be successful doing that, because that probably 90% of the time will reward you with taking a slap in the face. So even though that's happening today, that's probably not a good business model to just buy when it's moving up without any good risk versus reward framing for the trade setup. So if you just chase price and you make money doing it one time, it's going to hurt you in the long run if you continue doing that, because you'll probably lose 10 times what you ever made doing that. Crypto absolutely blasted last night and yesterday, and it's still holding up pretty high. Not gonna lie to you guys, it's frustrating watching this thing bounce and rally though. Like when I literally have said, we had that analysis that I went through since like 9 a.m. looking for this exact scenario, like a dip down to get in it, and just didn't find a great opportunity to get a part of it. And now it's just continuing to go without any pullback or anything, any good setup to be a part of it. So it is, if you missed it, don't feel bad, because like I didn't get a part of it this time too. And it is the scenario that I was looking for in my analysis, but did not get the right setup to be a part of it that I look for with my trade setups. But if you miss something like that, the important thing is just to not let it make you make forced errors. You don't want to now take losses and make forced errors for no reason, just because you missed being a part of something. See, looking at the news here, yeah, there's really nothing. You got that WASD report at noon, but that's it. Jay is all out. Nice trade, dude. Nice trade. Neem says, I think trading before 10 a.m. is always risky. Well, risk is where money is made. You don't make money without taking risk. Risk isn't the problem. It's the gambling when conditions are uncertain. You don't have a setup framed around it. For me, that's just like the first couple minutes after the 9:30 bell. Usually just because there's so many large orders hitting all of a sudden, it can really create too much noise on the order flow, which is what I look at to trade. And that makes it a little too much of a gamble there in the first, like, call it like 5 minutes. Carlos said, hey, Matt, for someone that is very new to Orderflow, Bookmap, Footprints, DOM, what's an effective way to learn it? Everything is so foreign that it feels kind of overwhelming. Yeah, it is probably one of the more complex ways to trade. I think it's probably, I might be biased, but it's probably the best way to trade. But there's lots of ways to trade and make money. But I think it's just the most real time information that you can possibly have in the market to make good decisions. Even if you're a higher time frame swing trader, I would think you would be very good to use like Orderflow to pinpoint entries. But it is probably have the highest learning curve of most trading strategies because it is so involved and it is so, what's the word? Can't think of the word to describe it, but it is so I guess discretionary based on how you interpret the price movement and action and volume. And it just takes a lot of screen time and experience. But if you're tuning into something like this is probably the fastest way I would recommend learning is learning from someone that is already doing it and can share nuanced. Yeah, that's a good word, Kendo. It's very nuanced and very discretionary. And it just takes a lot of screen time and experience to know like what you're looking for and understand like the pace of the market and get a feel for it. And it'd be very hard probably to trade like multiple different markets this way. I really think it's best to just be a very, very disciplined expert at one market with Orderflow. Yeah, and GK Carmine Rosado of InvestiTrade has a nice free Orderflow series on YouTube. That's, I think, very beginner friendly, and that'd be a good place to start as well. Like for the basics of like understanding things, that's a good place to start. We haven't even gotten a red 2-minute candle since 10:08. It's 10:30. So we haven't even gotten a 2-minute red candle. We just got the first red 2-minute candle in like 20 minutes. So there's been almost zero pullbacks since that bounce at 9:40, 9:45. Since that bounce at 9:45, there's been almost zero pullback. Just looking at the 2-minute candle, zero pullback, just straight up almost, 25, 30 points. So don't feel bad if you missed that. If you didn't get in there right at those lows, don't feel bad if you miss a 25 or 30 point bounce with like zero pullback. In fact, feel proud that you sat out and didn't do something dumb. Just joined Academy. I'm assuming you're talking about InvestiTrade Academy. Freaking excited. Still have to figure out what the chat is talking about, but I know it will come. Yeah. Just take your time and go through the course that Carmine has in there. It's very good. And don't rush things. Just take your time and learn the right way. Man, we got the first red candle in like over 20 minutes on the 2-minute chart, and it's like straight back up over the highs again. So tough to get in this one if you didn't catch it right on the bounce at the lows. What's up, Matt? Do you know if Invested Trade conducts any live trading sessions? No, not that. Carmine does go on live voice sometimes on there, but not often. Not right now, but I think there's some changes and stuff coming, and maybe that'll be a part of it. I don't know. We can see the first hour's in now, 9:30 or 10:30, 9:30 to 10:30, first hour's in. And we can already see like the volume and volatility is kind of declining. Can look at the volume just on the time-based chart, candle chart, just kind of consistently declining the later we've gotten this morning. And that's why I say on Fridays, I like to look for a quick base hit early on. And, you know, anything can happen, and there's always nothing is always and nothing is forever. But more often than not, seems like volume and volatility tends to decline the later it gets on the Friday, especially over the summer. So we want to be cautious. But man, I would have loved to have been a part of that bounce at the bottom. Ricky, any trades yet, Matt? No. If you joined late, I was looking at this zone down here to get long. After we started to bounce, I drew this box and I said, okay, if we pull back into here, I'm going to look to take this long, just based on this absorption above that 77 level that I had marked at the lows. Just a couple points above that, we saw this absorption and bounce, but just never got any pullback at all to get in on it. So if you didn't catch it right down here at the lows, it just kind of blasted straight up and has not pulled back once. And like I said, you know, looking back in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, we saw this absorption down here. That looks great. Should have taken it long. Well, you could have said the same thing here, 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 here. You know what I'm saying? So you could have taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses trying to catch the absorption at the lows. We really wanted to see the absorption and then aggressive buyers start to come in. So we saw that. We saw the aggressive buying start to come in. And then that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to take this long. If we pull back into here, never pulled back into here, just blasted straight up from there. So it is what it is. That happens sometimes. Don't catch every move the market makes. Would you recommend the Academy for someone that works full time, don't have much time for real time screen time during the morning session? Yeah, it's not like it's still a good training course, and you can still learn information that you can use to trade at a different time. I worked full time when I started it. Logan said today is very annoying. Nothing interesting is happening. So there's nothing wrong to feel that way, Logan, but I would try to avoid feeling emotions about the market conditions. I wouldn't frame anything as annoying or bad or good or whatever. It just is what it is. So we try to be very emotionless and not like feel frustrated or annoyed or whatever. It just, things happen. It is what it is. It's a probabilities game. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you just have to be very stoic about it. If you wrap your emotions around the market conditions of what it's doing, you're going to have a very up and down battle with trading. And I'm guilty of it too. So I'm trying to, like, this is annoying for me too, because I wanted to be a part of this, but I'm trying to be very like stoic about it because it just is what it is. This time it bounced straight up and there's absolutely nothing that I can do to control it. maybe the next time I see this setup and we pull back and I take it long and it works out for a nice winner. And then sometimes, it doesn't work and I take a loss on it. And that's just how it goes. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, sometimes I don't get a setup to be a part of it. And those are the three possible outcomes. And I try not to feel any kind of way about it, because if you feel any kind of way about it, it's going to affect your decision making, and it's going to possibly make you miss other opportunities or make forced errors because you're feeling some kind of way about something. So nothing, I'm not ragging on you because I feel that way too, but I'm just trying to explain, like, try to change your mindset to not feel any kind of emotional way about what the market is doing, because the market doesn't care about us. The market's just going to do what it's going to do. There's no reason to feel any kind of way about it. You just have to just observe and execute when our system and our setups are there. And when they're not, today's just not the day. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But there's no good conditions or bad conditions or annoying or whatever. Yeah, there's conditions that are better for the way that I trade, the way that you trade, etc. So that's good when that happens, I guess. But I would just try to frame it in your mind that there's no good and bad about the conditions. It just is. And we're just reacting when the opportunity is there, and when it's not, we just aren't. That's how I try to keep my mindset, so I don't sit here and simmer and feel like, these conditions suck, I missed this, whatever. Because then if you allow that mindset to creep in too much, it's going to cause you to make errors in your performance and your execution. Ishan, man, your psychology is amazing. Glad to be part of it. Really appreciate you talking about this. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to, even if it's not like a technical thing, I'm trying to share just things with you guys that I've learned over just years and years of doing this, whether it's technical or mindset approach to this. Hopefully you guys get something out of that. Getting a little bit of a pullback again here now. We'll see if something comes of it. But since we broke the highs above 6,300, we had that really nice bounce. Just looking at the 2-minute chart, guys, we had that really nice bounce off those lows, and we kind of rallied aggressively in a short period of time till around 10 a.m. And then since around 10 a.m., we kind of broke those highs. It's been just a slower grind straight up. So hard to be a part of that. You don't want to chase it. Here's some more selling coming in. I think the longer it goes like that and it just kind of grinds up, it makes it tougher to be a part of, and more people kind of sit out, especially if there's not like a lot of momentum and excitement and buying strength in that type of scenario. So it needs pullbacks. If like bulls are still strong and continue, need pullback to fuel volatility, to trap sellers and stuff to continue, or at least factor sellers into the market. Because the longer it just kind of grinds up with lower and lower volatility, you know, I think a lot of potential buyers, even like me, are kind of sitting hands off, like, you know, sellers haven't really gotten factored in yet. If we hit any kind of resistance where they do, then, you know, it could be that stair step up, elevator down. Rather sit back and wait for that elevator down and, you know, then get a part of it if buyers show they're willing to continue to buy. Logan said, does anyone have a break-even strategy that they're willing to share? At the moment, I moved to break even after 1 or 2 R, but it seems like the trade needs more room to breathe. Definitely, I have noticed in these conditions lately that giving trades a little bit of room to breathe has been better. But generally, I base it both on, or all on, the amount of points that I'm up and the amount of the main thing is the market structure and price action. Once it shifts in my direction, I know with the setups that I trade and the way that I enter, usually I'm right away after that happens. And if not, then I'm probably wrong. And so in this scenario down here, if I would have seen a pullback into here, say I got long around these 81s or even right here, and then price kind of broke this structure up to the higher highs, I probably would move my stop loss to break even, just because if my risk was down here and I was only risking like 2 points, we've already broken the structure to the upside. If we come back here, there's a very good chance that it's going to probably continue lower. And there's nothing stopping me from re-entering the trade. So a lot of times, if I do move my stop loss to break even after market structure breaks in my direction, like we broke all these prior highs, now I'd want to see pullbacks into here, hold. So at that point, it would make sense. But there are some times, and it's very annoying, where I do move my stop loss to break even, say I'm up 2 or 3 R, and then it comes back and stops me out, and I would be looking for I would be looking to re-enter, but it like stops me out to the tick and then bounces. That's a frustrating thing that happens. And it does happen sometimes. It happens to everyone. But you still got to manage your risk and have a system for doing it. But generally, as a rule of thumb, when I'm on ES, when I'm up over 5 points and I'm up like 2 or 3 R and price structure has shifted in my direction, then I generally look to at least just move my risk to break even. Just because I know from my data and the setups and the way that I take trades and enter trades, generally I'm right pretty much right away from my entry because my risk is so tight. And otherwise I'm wrong. But it's a really matter of knowing your own data. If that's happening to you a lot, Logan, then I would give it more breathing room and adjust based on your data. So your trades are not the same as my trades. So you have to kind of tune that system of weight about how you manage risk and how you manage trades based on your data and based on the trades that you take. So nobody can do that for you. But it is good to have an idea generally of ways to do it. So you have an idea of possibilities out there. That's why I just explained the way that I do it. But really the best way to do it for you is going to be knowing your data and how you trade. So that way you can tune it around your own self. So here we are dropping now back into here. Like I said earlier, if we drop all the way back down toward the low of the days where I was initially looking to enter this trade at this point, after we've already broken above 6,300 up to 6,307, almost that second target that I had, that trade just doesn't, that setup doesn't look as good anymore to me. If we hold a quick dip under 6,300s here, then that's interesting. I'll still watch it if we do drop down here, but just when I have a setup and we've already gone and hit those targets and then come back to the entry for that setup, the trade is no longer as good to me. Like I'm not still looking to take the same trade off the same entry when we've already gone and hit the things that I was looking to target with that setup, if that makes sense. So we just hit the top of this box again, right there around 99. Again, you can just buy it because it hits that area, but I'm not seeing anything significant enough for me to get in it just yet. Did Sierra chart show strong positive delta at that 78? I don't know. That you can see on the DOM here, this is what I was talking about when we got down into that zone, is that 300 lot negative delta that popped up at 81. I was viewing this as a passive buyer, and price bounced from there. I wasn't looking so much at the positive delta. I was looking at the negative delta at the lows. And then we did start to have some aggressive buying step in, and I was looking for price to pull back into this. Didn't happen this time. So we're bouncing very close right here at that prior regular trading hours day high right here around 98, 99. So buyers are trying to defend that there, but I don't see anything super too significant just yet. Again, we have not taken out that 63.10, 63.11 target just yet. So that is still in play. Would just love if we could get a little bit of a dip into this box here and see bids hold it. Logan caught that dip long. Nice. I didn't see anything that made me want to click buy right there. I could have, but 99 probably would have had a risk at that moment. If I was trying to buy this right at 99, my risk would have been under 94. So about a 5-point risk. Again, would have, maybe targeting 63.10. So it could have just barely squeaked out a 2R risk versus reward. So doable. 2R is like the minimum that I would look to take a trade, but just didn't really want to take 5-point risk on that setup. If we dropped into here and I see some really nice activity where I can risk like 2 points, then that would be nice. And then target a break back above 63.06 into 63.10, maybe a nice like 4 or 5 arch setup. And that's what I was really looking for. I generally like for a 2-hour setup, I don't really like setups where I have to risk a larger amount for a bigger move, if that makes sense. If I take a 2-hour trade, I like it to be like a really quick scalp on a really tight risk. I don't generally like to put on like 5 or 6 points of risk for 10 or 11 points of reward. I don't like that type of setup. If I found a really nice little scalp with like 1 or 2 points of risk to target like 4 or 5 points in a quick little scalp, then that's something that I like for more of like a 2-hour little scalp. But that kind of medium range trade where I'm risking like 5 or 6 points to make like 10 points, I don't really like that setup. All right, here's a nice drop into here now. Let's see what happens here in that zone. Here's some bids at 97, 98. Still waiting. I'm not going to just jump in front of this selling unless I see something good. So this 440 lot negative delta down here at 94.50, which is kind of right at the low end of this zone that I marked. It's a bit of buying coming in here. Let's see if this gets a little pullback now. Kind of flirting with that 98.75 level, which is that prior high of day off the morning rally. We're under it now. All right, it just got filled with a long here at that 98.75 with a stop loss like right at like 97, under 97. We're right in that zone. We're seeing some aggressive buying coming in. So it's like just under 2 points of risk now. And we'll see if we can go break out these highs over 63.07 into that 63.10 level. I may take this off fast though if I don't see like buying continue to support this quickly. So we're seeing that nice bit of buying. We saw this week selling here right at my entry. Now we're seeing a good bit of buying step in. I want to see this. We've now recaptured that 98.75 level, that 6,300 level. We're seeing larger buying back above that 6,300 level. So I want to see this continue now. I don't want to see this come back down below my entry. I'm going to be a little patient on it, but I want to see this buying succeed now on this recapture above 6,300. We had that dip into that 98.75. As soon as we started to recapture it with this weaker, and then we saw this weaker selling here is where I took it. And we are seeing that aggressive buying that I wanted to see after my entry. But like I said, I want to see that continue in a right now kind of way and go take out 63.07 into 63.10, 63.11. Would like to see us break IB and go for yesterday's value area. Yeah, I don't look at that stuff so much, but sounds good. If that dude warp, if that means we move higher from here where I just took longs, then I'm good with that. So this is where like that scenario that I was talking about, guys, like I'm up 4+ points, a little over 4 points. This is already like a 2R scenario for me because I caught that really tight risk dip down there. Just don't love how this buying is really dwindling here, though. I would like to see more aggressive buying coming in. But be patient, guys. And it is also, the other thing is it's kind of late in the morning on a Friday now. So I may cut this and if we drop back to 98 and take it off break even here, and then look to re-enter if I see good confirmations. I want to see us like hold that 6,300. Now that we're above it with this strong buying, I want to see us hold that 6,300. All right, my orders are set. I'm going to walk away for just a minute, guys. Give me just a second. I'm not going to overmanage this, and I'll be right back. Dang it, this is exactly where it was when I walked away. Nothing going on. Yeah, sometimes, guys, you just got to set the orders, take your hands off, and just sit back. And I'm not going to over manage this, and I'm not going to continue to hold this for an L. I don't like the weakness of the buying after I got in. It was a great entry. We got a nice pop off of it, but I'm not going to hold this red. Just, I liked the recapture of 6,300 with a nice strong buying, but it just went nowhere from there so far. So, all right. It just took me out for break even at 98.75. So we'll watch this for a second and see if we get a confirmation to get back in this. But we got the bounce that I was looking for with nice aggressive buying here above 6,300, and then it just faded. And now we're seeing larger selling come in and break back under 6,300. So I'm not going to bag hold that. It's the difference between being patient with a good trade and bag holding for no reason. And I'm not seeing a good confirmation here to continue holding it at this current moment. Like I said, I adjusted my risk to break even once we had that large buying above 6,300. You know, maybe we need to pull back a little further first, and I'll look for a re-entry. But it's also getting late in the morning on a Friday, so. But just zooming out here, you can see we dropped into that zone that I was watching. I caught it in that zone at 98.75 here. Good entry. I saw this large buying above this zone now. I did not want to see, just from a market structure perspective, I wanted us to get above this prior little swing high where we dropped from. And we got right up to it, and the buying got really weak, and we dropped back down. So at this moment, seeing the buying weak under this, we already recaptured 6,300 with larger buying. At this moment, I didn't think it was worth holding the trade red, just based on seeing the large buying on the recapture of 6,300 fade and fizzle, and then larger selling on the drop back down. To me, it's not the same trade as it was when I got it in here. Now, the context has changed, so I'm sitting back now. I'm looking for the same thing. If we come back into this zone and I see large absorption and aggressive buying again, then I'll possibly look to get back in it. It is starting to fizzle here, the selling, but on the drop back in here, see this kind of larger selling here, and buying got weaker under this high, and then saw this larger selling dropping back to my entry. There was just no reason to bag hold that for a stop loss under 97. So I would have just taken a 2-point stop loss right here at 97, and instead I took a break even. I was already up 2R on the trade. Yeah, it was very small, but I was up like, 4 points. Briefly up like 3-4 points. So I just didn't. Yeah, it might bounce from here now, but seeing this buying fade here and then like this larger selling on this drop back here, I'll see, you know, if I see something aggressive, but it's getting a little tough to read in my opinion, just because it's pretty slow and grindy right here at this moment. But I like this buying coming back in now. We'll see if we get another little pullback with weaker selling. I may try it again, but I may not. So this is another thing that you can just see on a candle chart. Well, I'm still watching this, so I'll move over. But if you just look at a candle chart, we already like bounced out of there nicely after that dip under 98.75. We recaptured it. And then, you know, just looking at the candles on the 2-minute chart, we're seeing closes right at the bottom as we drop down into here. We broke back under 98.75, back under 6,300, and now we rejected it again. So just purely looking at a price action on the candle chart structure, it doesn't look the same now as when I initially tried this trade setup. So now I need to sit back and be patient. The reclaim above 6,300 after drop was poor. Sellers reloaded there. Yeah, exactly. I liked the initial bounce and recapture here above 6,300 with this buying, and then it got stuffed here. So yeah, maybe we needed to pull back one more time, and maybe it'll bounce from here, and this might just be not my day today. It's just, it's looking pretty iffy. So like maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. It's just not looking great to me anymore right now with all the current information and how we've seen price move. It's looking pretty slow and it's looking pretty iffy on getting in here. The best chance for this setup, in my opinion, was this first dip into here, and it failed. See icebergs. I don't know what that is, but I'll look into it. Muskie, thanks. I don't give much weight to resting orders until I see things actually fill. And I use this TM Lite add-on to kind of filter out some of the like noise of kind of spoofed orders. But I really give weight to real-time things that actually get executed in the market. And that's what I look for, and that's what I execute on. So unless I see it get filled, like I'll look at these, you know, bids and offers, but I give it weight when I see orders get filled. I look into I look into new things, but for the most part, I try to just have as little noise on my charts as possible, and the least information that I absolutely need to like make decisions on my trades is it, to be honest. Just I'm at a point like where I have a system, I have the trades that I look for, I know what I look for, I know what works for me, and I just do those things, and then I try to eliminate any other noise. Get rid of this now. Nice drop down here. And so just reading price action here, guys, and reading this, that helped me to manage my risk and take a break even instead of taking a loss on that. So we'll see on this sharp pullback now. Now we're coming back to this area that was a key area from buyers. So we'll see if on this sharp drop now, we see some interesting stuff to go ahead and take it. This got filled here, clearly. Seeing a nice bounce from here, but let's watch this. Frankie took a short from 301. Okay. Yeah, so looking at the 15-minute here, we are literally just in the middle of the overnight range, like in the middle, even not even the full overnight range, just the range from like 2 a.m. until 6 a.m. We're like just in the middle of that overnight range on that pullback. So nothing super key there from my perspective. Just, we're going on 2 hours into the morning session, and we're right in the middle of the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. pre-market range on a Friday. So might be time to call it a day there, guys. One break even. We had the opportunity to see if we wanted to have a nice continuation rally above 6,300. Didn't happen right then. It's getting late. Entered on previous daily close settlement at 6307. Targeted previous day POC. We're 100 iceberg. Resting. Had no drawdown. Perfect trade. Nice. Yeah, sounds like a great trade. Fantastic. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. If you have a setup that works for you, rock on. That's a great setup, great trade. Yeah, we're just moving down here. All right, guys. I think I'm going to call it a day here. It's, it's coming up on 11:30 now. Friday, we're right in the middle of the overnight range, not even the full overnight range, just the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. range. Haven't really made any break from that. Best setup, like I said, at the day was the drop at that just above that key level that I mentioned in the pre-market. Down here, this zone that I drew out, this was the best setup. We broke out of it. Unfortunately, I didn't see the entry that I liked when I took a pull back into this. Blasted. Would have been a fantastic trade. I know some people caught it. Some people caught some other trades. So there's definitely an opportunity, but just didn't get the perfect setup confirmations that I like with risk and reward and probability and everything like that. That's okay. But turning into a Friday where we're 2 hours in, we're right in the middle of just a pre-market consolidation range. So nothing too significant that I need to force any setups for or force putting on risk for the later we get on a Friday, right in the middle of a range. So maybe something, happens later. Maybe some news comes out and sparks some volatility. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But to me, I'd rather probably wait and put on risk in different conditions that align with how I like to trade. So with that, I will probably see you guys on Monday. Does anybody have any other questions or anything before I wrap up the stream today? Hopefully you guys learned some things, dropped some mindset tips and some order flow analysis tips throughout the stream today. Took that one break-even trade. Nothing too crazy. Was looking for that kind of break and retest setup on that zone that we saw, just that consolidation zone at that 6,300 for the break and retest above there. Got a nice little bounce out of it, but it is what it is. Sometimes it doesn't work, and that's just how it is. Just have to manage manage the risk, and move on to the next one. Thank you guys for joining. Like I said, if you just drop a like on the video, it helps me out a ton, and I appreciate that. Thanks everybody for joining in. Good stream. Have a good weekend, everybody. Ricky, Jose, the one and only Josh, Robert, thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you guys. Blair, thanks for tuning in. Yep. Have a good day, guys. Have a good Friday. Have a good weekend. Peace.